The views and opinions expressed in these historical letters that may contain vernacular used in the World War II era, the post-war era, and the Cold War era do not reflect the views and opinions of any of the individuals involved with this project, including, but not limited to, the podcast's creators. Morning, Jamie.
Good morning, Allison.
How are you doing this morning?
It's chilly.
You know, it just snowed here, just a little dusting overnight, and it's very pretty. The roads are clear.
Oh, yeah.
But it's definitely in January, for sure.
Mm-hmm. This is January. It's chilly. It's cold. It's snowing,
yeah.
But coffee.
Got the coffee. Yep, check. Letters.
Letters.
Check. Also, some additional bonus content in today's episode, because if you listen to last week's episode, I have the best gram of the bunch, episode 38. Of course, coming from a sweetie, always appreciating her husband, Lou, and also receiving the news that Lou is finally going overseas. So we're going to answer some questions about that today. Right at the very end, we were talking about something significant that happens in April 1945, and that, of course, is the death of President Franklin Roosevelt, which moves Vice President Truman, Harry Truman, into the role of President of the United States, which is major, of course, for him. He's the only president in the 20th century to have never gone to college. Honest guy, going into office, ran the Truman Committee. He had been in the United States Senate for Missouri, ran the Truman Committee. Seems like that committee was pretty well respected on a bipartisan nature. But now all of a sudden he's thrust into this major office with a two-front war going on, war in Europe, war in Japan.
A war and he was only in Europe that one time.
One time, during World War I. So he has military experience, so that's probably going to help him here. But outside of that, he's going to have to rapidly catch up on everything that's going on. And it's a position no president has ever been in, that they've had to walk into a war at this scale mid-war and start running the country. Yeah. So that's really, really seismic, what's happening here. Before we continue, I would like to know, because before I continue more about the bonus content, if you are listening to the Love Sweetie podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, please leave a review, and please like, share, and subscribe. If you're watching in YouTube, check out our website at www.lovesweetiepodcast.com. Okay, I didn't want to forget to do that, so I'm going to go back to the subject of Harry Truman becoming president and President Roosevelt passing away. What's really, really great, Jamie, is that we actually have the video footage of the funeral procession of President Roosevelt. There was a newsreel that was released by United News, which was a part of the Office of War Information. It's part of the public domain. It is available from the YouTube channel for the Harry S. Truman Library, and the Harry S. Truman Library only asked that we credit this, so I'm going to credit this here. It's credited to the Office of War Information from Harry S. Truman Library, so I'll put that up on the screen here so that that can be seen. But we're going to go ahead and react, actually, to this clip, which is extremely historic, which is the funeral procession covering the death of President Franklin D. Roosevelt. And for our audio listeners, there is narrative being said here from this clip. There's some music, but if you'd prefer to skip ahead to the first letter of the day, this clip's about 6 minutes long, so just fast forward about 6 minutes, and you can join us with Sweetie's letter there. But without further ado, let's pick up where we left off last week and view the funeral procession of Roosevelt.
From his beloved second home at Warm Springs, Georgia, the body of Franklin Delano Roosevelt moves on the first stages of its journey to his final resting place. Scores of sufferers from infantile paralysis sorrowfully bid farewell to their great friend and benefactor.
That is an amazing hearse.
Mm-hmm.
The president's dog follows his beloved master. Aboard a special train beginning the 24-hour trip back to Washington, the 31st President of the United States leaves Warm Springs forever. All along the 700-mile route, people gather to honor President Roosevelt and his ideals.
The scores of people that are here, it's amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Slowly, the train backs into Union Station in the United States Capitol, awaited by a military guard of honor and members of the late great Chief Executive's family. With Justice Burns and Secretary Wallace, President Harry S. Truman heads the assemblage of the nation's leaders.
There he is. Yeah.
On a 6-horse field artillery caisson, escorted by representatives of every branch of the nation's armed forces, the casket passes grief-stricken throngs of people en route from the station to the White House. Warplanes pay a final tribute to the fallen commander-in-chief, and officers and men of the mighty armed forces which he led march in slow, measured tread in Franklin Roosevelt's honor.
Yeah, and if you're on our audio channel and you're listening to this, the thousands and thousands of people in this parade and procession.
Across from the White House in Lafayette Park, the men, women, and children whom Franklin Roosevelt served so well watch in tearful silence.
I mean, given that we just had President Jimmy Carter's funeral, the juxtaposition of these two events.
And just to see the size, the scale of this. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and we can see the funeral caisson heading forward up this massive processional.
And I mean, and there are so many people there.
Oh my gosh.
It's amazing to me. It's like an inauguration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then now they're walking in front of the White House.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, the troops marching past.
And it's just amazing the number of people that are there that you see. And everybody is so upset.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was a 4-term president, correct?
4-term president, landslide, right? Victory. Over 400 electoral college votes for the 44 election, even though it's pretty clear to basically everybody that he's not okay.
Right.
Health is failing.
Then, just before the brief private White House rites, President Roosevelt's casket rests in the historic East Room. Here, 80 years before, lay Abraham Lincoln. Now, home again, to the garden of his family home in Hyde Park, New York, comes President Roosevelt. Here in the old and lovely Hudson River estate, which several years ago he bequeathed to the people of the United States, the mortal remains of a man whose career has known no parallel in our time will rest forever.
Yeah. Yeah, so he passed away in Florida. He had been away from the White House, and that's what we had seen, we'd heard about in the last episode. And then they do the train processional. They proceed through, they do all of the official ceremonies of state in Washington, D.C., and Hyde Park, of course, in New York. We'd seen the Christmas card from Joe from Hyde Park.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but...
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and they're doing the 21-gun salute.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people have different opinions about FDR.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to learn more before I formulate mine. Yeah. But it's clear that he was a beloved president.
Very beloved.
In his time.
And the world mourn with Mrs. Roosevelt and her family.
And that's Eleanor, of course. Yeah, and there's the end of the clip.
I mean, yeah, it's. I mean, funerals in any capacity are upsetting.
Yeah,
but that was, and like I said during it, like just the fact that we had the President Carter's funeral, and to see like what this does to our nation.
Yeah, we've definitely seen, at least I'm trying to remember, when I was younger, I didn't really pick up on it. I think the first big death I remember hearing about was Princess Diana.
Yeah.
That was like the one that I was really seeing like the funeral coverage online. And then, of course, more recently, there was the death of Queen Elizabeth II. And there was all of that coverage. But as far as presidents go, HW was more recent. And then, then there's Carter, who was, I think, the only president to live to 100. Which is amazing. He was a hard worker. He was a really hard worker. And I've been to Plains, Georgia, and he was like far into his later years doing a lot with the community in that area. The Carter site, by the way, if anybody ever goes to Plains, Georgia, is his old high school. And that high school is still set as if it's like the 50s. So if you ever want to see like a retro high school, that is the President Carter National Site, is the high school. And if you're ever in Plains, Georgia, now you have to make a bit of an effort to get there. They also have his boyhood home, which actually the procession went by. You can go see that as well. They're known for peanuts and for peanut farmers in Plains, Georgia.
Well, peanuts are delicious.
They're delicious. But back to Roosevelt, just like the amazing scale of this funeral procession that we're able to see from video footage, which prior to Roosevelt's death, there's very little video footage, of course, that we would really ever see. I remember watching the movie The King's Speech. I don't know if you've ever seen that. This is about the address of George VI during World War II.
I've heard of it, but I've not seen it, no.
Great film. But, we have so much media today. We take it for granted. Like, oh yeah, like we can watch this on television and things like that. Seeing that, I can only imagine like putting ourselves back in like Sweetie's shoes. And not everybody has a television at home. Sweetie doesn't. Chester doesn't. Whoever had the television right in their home at that time, the rest of all of their neighbors were probably crowding into the rooms to see this, because it's the first time in history, one of the first times in history, that we actually do see that. So just to kind of take us back to those times, imagine the scene where if there's that many people in person, imagine how many people are crowded into these rooms to see, and there were very small television screens to watch this screen, to be able to pay respects and see it.
A presidential funeral like procession on TV. Yeah, like this is you're right. We take it for granted now. Yeah, that's something that it's like, oh, I could do that. I could go see whatever. Doesn't matter. Right. But I mean, we have 4 TVs.
Yeah.
Like it's just so it's amazing where we're at now.
Yeah, and the sound, the audio. So like that's why I love about King's Speech, because King George VI, that radio address, even the sound recording of a voice, we don't really have too much prior to the 1900s. That's why I remember when Daniel Day-Lewis portrayed Abraham Lincoln, and he's trying to figure out the voice. There's no recordings of him, right? They're trying to figure it out. And there's all of these accounts, so he had to go and study all of these accounts to get it as close to what we think it was like as possible. But the idea of the king being over the radio, when we get to hear Harry Truman speak, at the beginning was episode 3 of the Love Sweetie podcast. We listened to Roosevelt giving the Day of Infamy speech. And being able to hear him. How many, we get that, I've almost got like shivers thinking about it. Like all of these people crowding around the radio to hear the speech after Pearl Harbor, now crowding around the televisions where available, and then the radio where not, to hear about this funeral procession, and now waiting for more news. So I think we just have this environment that's really interesting to think about when these major events occur. But going back to what's going on with Sweetie, because we need to get back to Sweetie. Now, Lou's got his orders. He's going to go overseas. Where? Question mark. As of the last episode. Yeah. Question mark. Where is Lou going?
We don't know. He's going somewhere.
He doesn't know.
And Sweetie is lucky enough that her brother and his wife are in New York, so that she's able to stay with, family and maybe get a little reprieve from the Grahams.
Yeah, a little bit. Mr. Graham, of course, Sam Graham, not doing well health-wise. Mrs. Graham, Sydney, having a lot of anxiety and probably upsetting Mr. Graham because they were already concerned about that. Joe's home from England, so we have that whole element of this sort of entertaining actor. We met Marguerite, which is really interesting. We get that little line. But Sweetie and Lou go to New York, and that's where Bob and Florence and KM are. And so we're going to pick up today's first letter. We have 3 letters today, 2 from Sweetie, 1 from Lou, which is exciting.
Yeah.
But we're going to pick up the first one on April 20th with Sweetie in New York with Bob and Florence.
3810 Avenue R, Brooklyn, April 20th, 1945. Dear Jeanne, we are glad you were able to find an apartment and hope that the free run of the place will alleviate the strain and stress that 2312 Cottage Grove has put upon you. The house across the street sounds interesting, to say the least, but you didn't say how big it is or what it would rent for. I suppose you know you'd have more on your hands, more than you'd be alone. The apartment looks quite cozy from the diagram you sent, and aside from having to share the bathroom, I really can't see why you'd need to move. Of course, I haven't seen either place, and don't think I'm frowning upon the whole idea before I see either place. I do hope you'll do what you want to do, without placing too much emphasis on outside opinions.
See, now what I got from that paragraph was that her and Jeanne are discussing her coming to Des Moines.
Yeah.
And so so she's already in the works, like, oh, we're gonna be there.
Draw a diagram. Jeanne sent a diagram. We can't see it, but okay. And she said in the last episode, I'm gonna have, or a couple episodes ago, I'm gonna have this baby the way I choose. They're gonna be born in Iowa. That's the plan.
Today is Bob's day off. He's writing to the folks, and since Florence is taking a cat nap, I thought I'd write to you to tell you what has occurred in the last couple of days and what our plans are. I'm assuming Mama has sent you the last letter I wrote them. It was quite long, and I hoped I'd not need to repeat the details a second time. Lou left during the night sometime last Sunday. According to our guess, he should arrive in England sometime today. It may take a few days to hear from him, either by cable or letter.
Okay, now we know where Lou is. So that was the question mark, right? The undecided thing. Lou went to England.
So he's in England, thank goodness.
Oh, thank goodness. Yeah.
I mean, things are winding down there. So
tomorrow, I'm going back to Philly to pack the stuff and ship it off to Lacona. That includes Lou's stamps as well as clothes. I believe I'll be there nearly a week. As Louis's mom says, his pop was quite upset by the president's death, and both Joe and Lou leaving at nearly the same time. I've caught cold in this basement apartment. I've been afraid to wash my hair because it would just aggravate the cold. So I'm planning to wash clothes, hair, me, and get rid of this cold in that visit.
I know I'm pausing a lot here, but we're getting a lot of information, very densely packed, very quickly. So she's going to head back to Philadelphia. She's going to pack up things to go to Lacona. I love how the stamps are prioritized with the clothes, nothing else. It's like the stamp collection and his clothes.
I think we finally are coming to at least I am. I'm finally coming to understand like how important the stamp collecting is to the both of them.
They really like stamps.
They do.
And then we find out Joe's now left. So Joe's not at home. So he might have visited for a little bit, but at this point, he's out again. Whether he's heading back in some military capacity to another area, it's just unclear at this point, but he is not there.
Florence and I have packed a couple of cardboard boxes to ship home. You knew, didn't you, that Bob had his orders, and after a transfer to Norfolk, we'll know for sure where he'll go. Bob believes it will be the South Pacific again. He hopes to be able to take us home before he goes, and has already bought the tickets to fly back to Iowa on May 2nd. We will come to your house instead of going out to the Boltons. We plan to make use of the apartment already, you see. We will leave here at 8 a.m. May 2nd, and if we are not bumped off along the way, we will arrive in Des Moines at about 5 p.m. of the same day. Should we lose our seats to someone with a higher priority, we'd have to come the rest of the way by train. So I guess if it is explained to you that way, you will not worry if we do not come.
So here, when she's talking about flying, I used to fly a lot when I was a kid. We used to fly down to Texas in the 80s. And so it was kind of like just a thing. And it was, it was fun. I had never thought about what it would be like to fly in the 40s.
Oh, yeah.
And it is not fun or good. I mean, well, first of all, in the 40s, they have a bunch of soldiers traveling. So like when she talked about
priority
being bumped off. Yeah. that's a real possibility that you had to plan for. It's also not cheap. You know, it wasn't, we need to find out what the prices are.
Yeah, we should look at the price of tickets, of the plane tickets back then. I will definitely look that up.
That was something that, but it wasn't something that was accessible to everyone.
No, it wasn't.
But the fact that he was able to buy the plane tickets, you still were able to do this. It was, they had to fly very low. They couldn't fly at the altitudes that they fly today.
Right.
And also some of the airports were not very well equipped to handle passenger flying. So the fact that they're even able to, number one, get tickets,
right,
and have the opportunity to fly, especially for her, like now in her condition, it's a great thing. I'm going to be eager to find out. I don't know if we ever find out if they actually do get to fly. Do you know, Allison?
I think they do. I think
they do get to fly.
Yeah. A train ride for her is going to start to become more difficult at this point. And I think about like the rocking of the train, right? For hours and hours and hours to go from the East Coast back to Iowa. And that's a lot.
Even like the changing of the stations. And from other letters, we know that they just open the platform and then everybody just runs.
She's not going to run anymore.
There is no running.
I don't think she's running anymore. Yeah, you know, it's just interesting. We'll have to see if we can talk with someone about how flight and travel was in the 40s, because it is popular enough that it's occurring. Obviously, the convenience of it is there. But we think about, you know, today, even in the 80s, but especially today, post 9/11, we think about get to the airport if it's domestic and an hour early at least. And then there's all the security screening. And then there's the gate. In the 40s, these airports are still relatively small. In fact, you might be able to just walk out to the plane, and I'm assuming that's what it is, and go up the stairwell into the actual passenger seating area.
Oh, I'm sure that's exactly they loaded them right on the tarmac. Yeah, not like today.
Yeah, like it's not like the gate set up. Yeah, it's a different world for sure. But at least the convenience is there. We're starting to see that convenience come in.
I sure hope we can fly, for I'm sure now that my wee one is beginning to kick and squirm. Yes, it really doesn't seem quite possible, for according to my count, I've just started the 4th month, on April 18th. I wasn't sure at first, but I sure am now.
And did you want to comment here, Jamie, about...
I just am so happy.
I know, I see the happiness. It's like, ooh.
I'm so happy. I'm so happy for her. It's so fun when you first, and this is her first baby, and you're like, I'm sorry. Yay!
Yeah.
I may not be able to write again, but if I find time at 936 Springfield, I'll write to somebody anyway. Of course, I love to write to Lou. If we find our plans are changed, I'll try to let you know. But you write anyway. I'll be back here about the 28th. We leave May 2nd. Love from us all. Sweetie, Bob, Florence, and KM. We still haven't sent the SIGs.
Yeah.
I love how she puts that at the end. She's like, oh, by the way, haven't sent your cigarettes yet. Sorry.
Oh my gosh, Jeanne really smoked all her life. Like, so this very obviously starts at a very early point where there's conversations about sending cigarettes. Yeah, so that's the plan, is they're going to pack up items that Lou has in Philadelphia, get them to Lacona, return to New York, and then, because especially with flights, obviously there'd be a bigger airport even at that time.
Oh yeah, New York would be way better than
Philadelphia. So yeah, the plan is to fly out. Bob wants to go with him. And it's all so nice. Like, Bob's a pilot, you have an extra pilot on board.
And I really do like too that Bob is like, because he could have easily said, you girls are on your own, you know, but he's like, no, because he's like, I'm gonna fly out there, take you back, and then go do what I need to do, or go be deployed.
Oh yeah.
So I really appreciate that about Bob.
I don't think he'd hear the end of it from Chester and Laura if it's like, why did you let your wife and your little baby and your pregnant sister fly alone?
Oh yeah, they definitely would. Chester would have been. It probably was like, he probably didn't even think twice about it. He was like, nope, I have to do this. So I really love Bob.
These are all plans, so it's not clear if it's actually going to happen. Not yet, at least.
Yes, this is true. I forgot. These are plans. Okay.
Yeah.
But so, I'm so very excited.
I know.
Because I just love Andrew so much. I can't wait to meet him. But our second letter today is from Lou to Jeanne.
Right. From Lou to Jeanne. And we have, remember, there's a huge relationship between the brother and sister-in-law, you know, and this is where we start to get to the point where it's like, okay, Sweetie is going to be in transit a lot. She's pregnant. Lou wants to check in with Sweetie, and he's going to do that at times by checking in with Jeanne to check in on Sweetie. So there's this whole thing that's going to happen in 1945. And here's Lou, and he's no longer writing from the United States.
England, May 3rd, 1945. Dear Agatha, first I want to apologize for the cheap stationery. I would like to write you on airmail stationery, but it's not to be had here. This is all I can get. If you should see any airmail stationery laying around, pack it up and send it over. I could sure use it. I want, too, to apologize for the pencil, but all my fountain pens were in my parachute bag, and as you probably know, Sykes got that. So if you should see any cheap fountain pens in a 5 and 10, pick one up, and I'll buy it from you. Now isn't that a way to start a letter to my favorite sister? All joking aside, though, there really isn't much that I can tell you, so I'm just trying to make conversation. We had a very pleasant trip over, no trouble at all, and I never even got seasick, so there. The country around here is very pretty. I'm sure your daddy could do very well here with his canvas and paints, but at the present time, the weather isn't so very good. We have had a slight drizzle, and everything is wet.
And I want to pause here just to say he never even got seasick, so there.
I know, right? Him and Jeanne have this relationship where they just have become each other's favorite brother and sister.
Yeah, for sure.
And which is really, really convenient because that is Sweetie's other half. Sorry.
Yeah. This is BFFs, for sure.
Yes, they're BFFs forever, and now he loves her too.
And the other thing here is, Lou's been in the Navy since 1942. He finally traveled the ocean. So it's like, this feels like graduation. Like, you finally got somewhere where there's an ocean. It only took 3 years.
3 years.
3 years, but you got there. And because this whole time, he didn't know if he was seasick. He's one of probably the only guys in the Navy that's like, I don't know if I'm going to get seasick. I haven't been in the ocean yet.
She probably was teasing him about it too. Yeah. She's like, hee.
I can see it.
Naval man, never been on the ocean. Yeah, I'm sure she was. And so he got her back. Good.
Yeah.
Good for him.
And then he mentions about Chester, how much Chester would really like to be in Europe, because Chester could really putter around in England.
He'd putter so hard.
He'd be puttering. Yeah.
He'd be puttering with an English accent.
He totally would. I could see him with the cap, like the English professor and the cane.
He would love it. With the herringbone jacket with the leather patches on the elbows.
Absolutely.
I haven't been off the base yet, so I can't tell you much about the English people or towns. We do use English money on the base, though, and I'm having an awful time trying to get the halfpennies straight from the thumpney bits or something. I don't know what it's all about.
What is it all about? The halfpennies and the thumpney bits.
I love he writes how he talks, I love that.
Yep.
I'm trying to get the halfpennies straight with the thumpany bits or whatever the frick they're called.
Yeah. What is this? So, do you have any guesses? Because I will say, I do know what he's talking about here.
Oh, you do? No, I don't. Halfpennies are probably the thumpany bits. I'm guessing they're the dollar.
Close, yeah. It's definitely the currency. Yeah. He's trying to keep track of everything. So, the halfpennies, I believe, is the halfpence. And then...
Oh, okay.
And then we have the 3 pence. So, he must be hearing it sort of this way, and he just doesn't know because, currency. He's listening to the accents from the people in England, and then he's just listing it like this. But yeah, if you do Google thumpny bits, it'll bring up 3 pence. So there you go.
I'm sorry, that was just so funny because currency.
Yeah, currency. Yeah, the halfpennies. Yeah.
The war news is really getting good, isn't it? I guess by the time you get this, it will be better. There's only one news I'm looking for, and that won't be in any newspaper. That will be on a white paper about so big.
The white paper he's talking about is just a letter from Sweetie about how she's doing. Yeah. Yeah. That's more important to him than, things ending in Europe.
Well, Aggie, I hope you can read my English script, or Czechoslovakian scratch, or whatever you want to call it. Maybe I can do better next time. I really did enjoy your letter, and I'm looking for more. Until later, take care of my family and yourself, and I'll see you soon. Love, Bertram.
And then that's so cute. And they had their little nicknames for each other.
They do. And I love his little comment here about like the script, that his script's kind of all over the place. But yeah, I will say this. This is where you know that his interest in academics and bettering himself in his education is a lot higher than what he plays to in the previous slide. Because he is only one letter off from spelling Czechoslovakian perfectly.
I looked at that and I was like, I can't spell Czechoslovakian.
Yeah. So
I can't.
I think it's only missing a C in there.
He probably got it from a stamp. He probably learned how to spell it like from doing stamps.
Yeah, from the library.
I'm not even joking.
Yeah, he probably did. So,
but this was a very sweet letter from Lou to Jeanne. You know, just and we also can see like he really loves his family, which is wonderful.
Oh, for sure, yeah. But it's also nice to get that confirmation. By now, he's in England. So, and we're gonna leave him in England. You know, for the rest of this episode. We will hear from Lou again overseas, but not for the rest of today's episode. But we're going to fast forward again. We have another big item of the news to bring up. And to do this, I'm going to go back to that Des Moines Register because it's what Chester and the rest of the Demery family in Iowa would be looking at. Yeah. Seems important to note. And this is from May 8th, actually, 1945.
And for our audio listeners.
Yeah, oh, definitely. Before I forget, for audio listeners, this is the headline of the Des Moines Register from May 8th, 1945. Germany surrenders. Give up in Norway, hold out troops in Bohemia, quit King George, hails Eisenhower's crushing victory. Because we get the first mention of Eisenhower here that we've talked about. You know, we know where that's going to be heading in the 50s. Obviously, in command of the forces there. I believe at the Harry S. Truman Library, Eisenhower gave the surrender pen to Harry Truman. It's in his library. I'm pretty sure I saw that. Let me go check that.
You have pictures.
Yeah.
So Eisenhower gave the surrender pen to Harry S. Truman.
He did. And I do have a photo of this pen. It is currently at the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library in Independence, Missouri. So again, for any of our listeners, if you're trying to figure out where Independence, Missouri is, what a great name for a town for a president. Independence. Remember the Oregon Trail? That's where you always start the game, is Independence, Missouri. It's right outside, right to the east of Kansas City. You'd almost, I think, consider it a suburb of it. But here's the picture of the pen, the surrender pen. So,
and we need to credit whose picture is this?
This is, so I took this photo when I was visiting.
Yours.
Yep, when I was visiting the Harry S. Truman Presidential Library. Pen used in signing of the German surrender in Reims, France, May 7th, 45. So the German army officially surrenders May 7th. Of course, this hits the papers on May 8th. And then we have the Victory in Europe, VE Day. So it also says on the case here to Harry S. Truman, the President of the United States, and it says DDE, which of course would be Dwight David Eisenhower. So, yeah.
That's really, thank you for sharing. This is a really amazing piece of history.
Yeah, it's
nice to have this picture.
That. So visit the Harry S. Truman Library. If you're near Missouri, go see these items. There's a lot more than this pen. That's a gigantic library. Look, if David McCullough writes a book that is this long about Harry Truman, you can only imagine how much time he spent at that Harry Truman Library. It really is phenomenal to visit. So, but yeah, so in the middle of all of this going on with Sweetie's life, we get that last major update, at least for this episode about World War II, which is the war in Europe is over.
No, it's done. Oh,
it's done. Oh, thank goodness. One side's done. Now Lou just got there.
Well, thank goodness. Like if there was ever a time to go into war,
he shows up and he's like, "All right, guys, I'm here. I'm ready. All right, it's over. There we go.
You're welcome."
He got there because his letter's from May 3rd. He got there before it happened by at least a week. So, He was there during the war.
I mean, it's just amazing how things turn out and how things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So he got there after the war, and so so we do have to jump a little bit for our next letter, like a whole month basically for our next letter.
Yep.
And this is from Sweetie to Jeanne.
Yep.
Lacona, Iowa, June 3rd, 1945. Dear Jeanne, I'm sorry I didn't have my wits about me when we were in Des Moines this last week, for I wanted to ask you to see if you could find time to buy me 3 nice Father's Day cards for June 17th. I believe if you'd bring them with you when you come Saturday, one will have time to get to Lou by then. I'd like it to be pretty nice, and a couple more ones for Lou's daddy, and one for ours.
Okay. So whether the plan worked out with the travel that she had with Bob and Florence, we don't know. We're fast forwarding now a month, but she's in Lacona. She's in Lacona, and she had been in Des Moines. So she must have gone into Des Moines by the traveling, stayed with Jeanne for a bit, but now she's with her parents in Lacona. And then she's talking about Father's Day coming up for 3 cards. One for Samuel Graham in Philadelphia, one for Chester at home, and one for Lou to send to England, even though the baby's not born yet.
Oh, he's still a daddy.
Mm-hmm.
We got home a little after 4 Friday, and Daddy and Bob went right out to the farm. Had a blowout with the Ford, so I went and got them, and Mom and Dad rushed out to an OB case without a bite to eat.
We should mention here, we're getting so much information in just small sections in these letters. Bob's still home. He hasn't been sent to the South Pacific yet. It's now a month later.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So at least for now, he hasn't gone anywhere.
So he's been there for if they flew on May 2nd,
right?
They've been there for a month.
For about a month, yeah.
Saturday we ironed and monkeyed around. Today's Emmy's birthday. Mary and Bill and Mrs. Bolton sent her a white slip, a $1 bill, some candy, and a handkerchief. The folks gave her the shoes and socks, and I've got a little lapel pin given to me as a gift that I'm going to put into a little box with a $50 and put it under her plate at dinner time. We'd planned a big dinner at noon, but this a.m. Mom, Daddy, and Bob went out to the place. Mom and Bob came home at 3 to say they wanted to lunch and were to take lunch to Daddy. So I turned out the fire under the chicken, and we'll have our big dinner tonight. I already peeled potatoes, scraped carrots, cleaned 2 quarts of strawberries that Mom bought from Gleason's next door, and I'd already made a divinity ring for an angel food cake, put coconut on top, and 7 pink candles on it. So the folks are to come at about 6:30, and we'll eat then. I cut out and saved the front row from the Tribune, and I'll send them to Lou 1 or 2 at a time to spread them out and make letters more interesting. As you know, I've been ousted from my room upstairs, and the best I can do is sleep on the blue Davenport. I have to wait until the family clears out and then go to bed to be wakened first thing in the morning by the blare of the news report. There isn't very much to write about, really. I didn't have much chance to talk to you. But Lou is trying to get to you through me, to say how he appreciates your letters. Evidently you wrote to say he was flattering you, to have called you a gem, for he protested to me, saying you should know that it was his genuine feeling for you, and not just flattery. I wonder if you have any suggestions as to whom we should send baby announcements. I ordered 50 from S&R. If they aren't nice enough, I can send them back and still buy them in Des Moines or somewhere. I also ordered a pair of slippers from M.W. I hope they'll do. Well, I've got to write to Louis, and so I'll stow my gab until the weekend. Did you know today's our anniversary? We've been married 18 months today. See you Saturday. Love, Sweetie.
Okay.
18 months.
18 months. So Sweetie's now really situated at home in Iowa. I love the Bob's there. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And then it's the mention that Chester and Laura took Bob out to the place. We have to leave a question mark here. Is that the farm? We haven't heard about the farm for a while, that Chester was looking to buy that farm. So when they say they took them out to the place, it's very possible that something happened here with the farm that he'd heard about. But yeah, we hear more about this relationship between Jeanne and Lou. And it's just nice to have all of that correspondence going on. And the other thing is, there might even actually be fewer letters from 1945 in the collection, because Sweetie's at home, but we get to know what's going on every now and then because Jeanne's in Des Moines. And because Lou, as we head towards the end of season 1, is going to fill in the gaps because there's correspondence here that Jeanne kept all these years. So I'm just eternally grateful that she held on to everything like that, because otherwise 45 would be a bit of like, well, I guess, she was pregnant. She went home and she, has the baby.
She wasn't writing any letters.
She wasn't really writing. She writes a bit, so we still have some, but we're starting to see the gaps build in. But luckily, because this could have been a gap from April 20th to June 3rd.
Yes.
But in the middle there, we get Lou saying, well, I'm now in England, Jeanne. So we get this little update here and these plans being made from overseas, which is really, really exciting. And we're going to continue to see that. So if people are wondering, are we going to see more of the communications from Lou and Jeanne during this season? Yes, we are, during the summer of 1945. And we will hear from Lou again, I believe, next week. So, yeah, really, really just an exciting episode.
Very exciting. So much happened. So much happened in this time period.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes. But Sweetie is now, we can rest assured that Sweetie is now at home.
She is. She is now at home. Yep. She's in Iowa. She was determined to have this baby in Iowa. Looks like she's going to do exactly that. Chester's an OB. We'll have to see where that's going to come into play here. And remember, she'd written in a previous letter, not in this episode, I really hope I have the baby at the hospital.
Mm-hmm. Yes, she did.
Which would be in Des Moines. There's no hospital in Lacona, so she's got to get to Des Moines to get to the hospital if this baby's going to be born in a hospital. So we'll leave that for the very end of season 1, but a little bit of a teaser for that as we head towards the end of season 1. Jamie, I can't believe we're on episode 39. We're going to record episode 40 next. It's just amazing. And to be in 1945, we ended the war in Europe.
And the war is gone. It's done. It's over.
That part. Now just Japan.
Right.
Gotta deal with Japan, yeah. But
on that note, we'll see you next week.
See you next week. Bye, everybody.